So what I'm going to cover, I'm going to give you some overview of what's Azure IoT Hub and Azure IoT Suite and what you can do with those things and how you can connect your devices. I will give you an overview of the Java libraries that are available there and how you can actually connect your devices to the cloud. And I will do some practical hands-on coding just to give you a sense what's Azure IoT Suite and what it can really do for you. That's a slide that I guess we will see a lot today, just to give you some perspective on IoT. Aside from being just cool, connecting devices, there is really a business value for it. It's predicted that there will be something like 25 billion devices connected to internet by 2020. And the overall market share would be 1.7 trillion. So that's why there is such a huge interest from the large companies to IoT. Now, as previously mentioned, IoT means different things to different people. But generally, the concept could be broken down to like these 4 blocks. You have the things that you are, connecting, all the sensors, all the gadgets. In order to, create a solution, you need to be able to connect them to the cloud. And from this point forward, you have the data that's coming from these devices, and you need to do some analytics on top of this data to actually make sense. And that's kind of building a complete end-to-end solution. So for me, IoT can be generally split into 2 things. One is the things and connectivity, and the other part is the data and analytics. In the first session, I will be covering the things and connectivity, and in the second session that I have later today, I'll be talking about the data and the analytics part. So let's take a quick look on the how we connect and what's the IoT architecture for connecting devices to the cloud. Generally, it's really rarely straightforward. You have devices that are not IP enabled, so you can't really directly connect them to the cloud. For this, you will need to have something that's called either a field gateway or a protocol gateway. The idea of the field gateway would be something that you're connecting your sensors and you're using this IP-enabled device to actually connect to internet. A good example for this would be a Raspberry Pi, for example. You connect all the sensors to it, but it's providing you with the IP capabilities to connect to the cloud. The other point is that not all devices speak the same languages or same protocols, so sometimes you might need to have this protocol gateway or protocol adaptation in order to adapt them, and the data can be readable for the cloud. You need to have something like a cloud gateway. In this case, is the IoT Hub that will kind of allow you to connect all those devices, and actually get the data out of them so you can kind of process it. And when you're processing the data, you usually have the hot path. That's kind of a stream analytics in near real time. And the other part, which is you already have connected and collected the information, and you're doing some post-analytics on top of this. So having all this kind of represents end-to-end IoT solution. So if you look at the Microsoft Azure portfolio, there's really this humongous number of services and technologies. So if you want to get started with IoT, you would be wondering, what should I use and where should I start? That's another overview of the services that are more or less related to IoT. That's the devices, what are the options for data ingestion or connectivity, where you can store them, and the services that you can use for analytics and presentation of the results. Still, this is a lot of services, a lot of information, so it would be kind of hard to get you started. And that's the reason why Microsoft came up with something that's called Azure IoT Suite. And essentially, Azure IoT Suite represents a kind of a collection of services that were pre-collected and pre-connected for you in one solution, and you can start using it directly. It comes in, the pre-built solutions come in 2 flavors that are addressing to, let's say, industrial scenarios. First one is for remote monitoring, like overviewing what's the situation and what's happening with the data from some, let's say, factory or some sensors. And the other is the predictive maintenance. For example, if you have jet engines that are working a lot, you want to see what's the status and does it need maintenance soon, so you can schedule maintenance and do something about it. So these are two pre-built solutions that you can take and start using and kind of start connecting your devices. The idea of this solution is that you use them as a pre-built solution, but they are open source. They're actually published into GitHub. And you can start customizing them to arrive to something that's really applicable to your specific use case. So let me just quickly go and kind of present how this looks. Second. And that's really what you will find if you go to Azure IoT Suite. You have the option to create new solution. And here you will see the two options that I've just mentioned. So let's hope that the internet connection kind of a speed up. And these are the two types of solutions that you can provision. I've already provisioned one, so I can save time. It takes something like 10 to 15 minutes to provision a solution. Once you provision it, you will have all the information for it. As I told you, it's all the details are published on GitHub, so you can actually go download the solution and make modification for yourself. And when you open the solution, what you will see is like this first screen. Well, you have pretty much the solution dashboard. You have the devices. Currently, all the devices are simulated devices. So I will just go and enable one just to start sending data. For each device, you can see some basic information. What's the device? Is there any rules? For example, threshold, if it's a temperature sensor, if it's going too high, you need to stop the device or something like this. And you have some basic commands like stop telemetry, get a diagnostic of the device, and kind of interact with the device itself. So just let me go back. You are able to define rules. I think that's one interesting rule, that if the temperature goes over 38 degrees, then you need to be, you should send an alarm. And the actions are actually the alarms, the actions that you can connect to a specific alarm, like, send me a message or, send some information. So let me go back to the presentation. Right, so. Okay. So what's really behind the Azure IoT Suite and what are all the services that are connected? I'll just quickly go over them. You have the IoT Hub, which is used for data ingestion or kind of getting all the information from all the sensors. You have the Stream Analytics that's kind of looking at the data at nearly real time. So if you get some like high value, or if you have new devices connected, you can kind of take decision what to do. If, for example, you have a high value for temperature, this is going into Event Hub, which is more or less, you can consider this as a message queue. So this Event Hub is kind of monitored through a web job. You can kind of consider this as a cron job, where it's kind of taking information that something's going on. And once it's detected, you can kind of trigger some actions. And also you have like storage of the information for all the telemetry that's coming and storage of the metadata. As well, there are some additional services like the Power BI that is used for kind of presenting the data into this dashboard. Okay, so how do you really connect the devices and what are the challenges? I mean, people are usually not thinking about it, but in order to connect the device, you need to deal with the communication protocols. Each platform is specific. You need to take into consideration the security because you're sending data and this data could be like really mission critical. You need to have some way to identify a device that's connecting to your cloud to know that that's the specific device that you're getting data from. And you need to have the device needs to be an IP enabled. So essentially what you're looking at, if you have like data ingestion point where you would need to connect your devices, you're looking for a functionality that would allow you to connect device to cloud to send telemetry. You need to be able to communicate back to device. You should be able to probably upload data on bulk. You need to take care of the security. You should be able to monitor it. And you are really looking for something that could allow you a broad reach of this vast number of platforms that are available out there. So for this specific reason, Microsoft developed the IoT Hub, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit more about. So IoT Hub was designed specifically with IoT in mind. If you consider it, you can think about it as let's say an event broker or a message queue, but it really builds on top of this idea by adding all the capabilities that I've mentioned previously, all the security, the support of different protocols, and specifically the idea of identifying the devices and provisioning credentials for each device that you're connecting there. So if we look into more details about the IoT event Hub endpoints as from standpoint of the APIs, you have like two sets of APIs. There's actually three sets of APIs. One is the, let's say, device-facing part. These are the APIs or the SDKs that are related to devices. This is the libraries that you need to install on the device so that it can communicate with the IoT Hub. So that's the part that's kind of communicating forward and backward in the cloud. The other part of the SDKs are related to the cloud endpoints. So you have the IoT Hub, and behind it you have all the cloud, let's say, features and services that are taking information from there so that can kind of adapt and ingest all this data that's coming from the devices. And the third part of the SDKs are related to IoT Hub management because, for example, if you want to provision like thousands of devices, you won't do it like manually, you would like to do this programmatically. So if you look at this, this kind of builds all the SDKs that are available for IoT Hub. Now, IoT Hub comes with Device Client SDK, which really supports C, JavaScript, Java, C#, and Python. So it's a pretty vast portfolio for pretty much any device that you will find out there. And for the service client, that's the one that's laying in the cloud, you have the options to use C#, Java, and JavaScript. And in these specific presentations, of course, I will focus on the Java part, and I will show you how you can use both of those. They come conveniently into packages, so you can manage them with Package Manager. I guess for Java developers, the Maven would be the one that's really kind of interesting, and that's the one that I use mostly. Aside from this, you have these tools that kind of help you to debug and see what's going on with your devices. Are they connected? Are they provisioned? What's going on? You have two options there. One is the Device Explorer that I will use in this presentation. It runs on Windows. The other is really platform independent. It's called IoT Hub Explorer. It's a Node.js application, and you can pretty much, if you have Node running somewhere, you can kind of use it to do all this. So it's just to mention, it's IoT Hub and IoT SDKs do support pretty large number of operating systems. That's just really a short list. You can go online and check and see for your specific device in your platform what's the available support. And there's also a pretty large support for different protocols. specifically HTTP, MQTT, and AMQP. For some libraries, there is support of MQTP over WebSocket, so I think it's not mentioned here, but it's also available. Also something else, there is Azure certified devices for IoT. It's a large number of partners that are developing devices that are certified, and you can run the SDK. So you can definitely go online and check for your specific device, whether there is support, which are the supported platforms, and which are the SDKs that you can use. And from this point forward, I would really switch the gears and I will go into a little bit more coding and the practical example of what does it take to kind of connect your device to Azure IoT Hub. So let me kind of close the presenter view. And I'll just briefly start with this. I've started one of the simulated devices that was not previously started, and you can see it started generating some data about temperature and humidity. These are simulated devices, and using the SDKs, you can create your own simulated devices, so you can kind of simulate your, let's say, specific solution before going for it. And the goal of what I'm going to show today is how you can create your own simulated device and really connect it to this specific provision solution. Now, to do this, the solution kind of provides you a way to manage the devices, and there is an option here that's saying add a device. You can add a simulated device, which would be a C# one. We don't want this one. We want to add a Java one. So we go for a custom device. So going for a custom device, you should provide device ID. So for this reason, I will just create one that's using JavaScript just to show you how it works. Check ID. There is no device like this. I have just created it. It's done. Let me check the device details. The device is available. There is nothing that's really connected there. So this little script kind of uses the Node.js SDK. So I'll just start it. And you can see that we are sending some data. Okay. So what I'm getting here is like an error that's saying me your device is not authorized to connect. So what I've missed and what I haven't done is that I have just provisioned a new device with new credentials, and in my application I'm using credentials from another device. So if I don't provide the necessary credentials, I can't connect to the Azure IoT Hub. So let me just show you what Azure IoT Hub looks like. This is the solution. And this is really the Azure IoT Hub. And I can go and check what are the available devices. And as you can see, this is the new device that I have just created. And for this device, I have the ID, and I have something that's called connection string. And that's the string that's allowing me to connect to Azure IoT Hub. So let me just quickly go to the code and put the new connection string here. Sure. Is it better this way? Yeah. And let's just try it again. Okay. And now we are sending data. So if I go back again to the dashboard, and see my new device, you can see that I'm really generating some data for here. So just let me stop it. And just go back and check what also happened. I have the device up and running, right? And by connecting, I also received some general information about the device that have just connected, which is providing me some basic data about the device. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I went to GitHub and I saw that there are like a lot of options and a lot of code that kind of shows you how to do this in Node.js and C#, but not in Java. So I said, okay, that's a shame. I'm a Java developer, so I definitely want to kind of show this and how it's working. So I went in and started like looking at the Node.js code, and I decided, okay, so I can do it in Java. There are Java SDK, so why not? So the first thing that we need to do is actually provision the device or create a device in the Azure IoT Hub. Now, I will use this device explorer, which is kind of a convenient way for me to monitor what's happening on the Azure IoT Hub without necessarily going to the portal. In order to do this, I have the connection string to Azure IoT Hub, and once I enter it there, I can see the list of devices. And as you can see, that's the last device that I have created, and it's there. So let's try to create one programmatically. In order to do this, I need to use the Java SDK, which is kind of providing you the services part. It's not for, it's not the one that's really running on the end devices, but it's the management SDK for the Azure IoT Hub. So let's go here and just quickly check what's that. It's really provisioning the device. In order to have it up and running, you really just need to add one dependency in your POM file, which is the Azure Service Client SDK. And in order to provision the device, it's really kind of a simple code. Like you need to provide the connection string to the Azure IoT Hub. You need to provide the device name and just the device ID. So let's quickly run it. All right. Okay, so we have successfully connected. The application executed, so let me try to zoom this one for you. It would be easier. So that's pretty much the entire code. That's all there. And if I go back to my Azure IoT Hub and kind of refresh the list of the devices, you will see that I have the Java simulated device already there, right? I can see it also in the device explorer, I guess. Just let me refresh. And now let's go back to the dashboard with all the devices. So let's do a quick refresh here. Now, funny, I mean, the device is not available here. It's not presented, but it's also in the Azure IoT Hub. So I was thinking, okay, I provisioned the device in the Azure IoT Hub, but I don't have any information or metadata for device that's being registered in my solution. So it kind of start me getting thinking, what do I need to do? So looking at the solution itself, I kind of found out that there is a database that's storing metadata about the device. So let me just quickly show you. It's a document DB that has been provisioned with the solution itself. And inside the document DB, let me try to get all this information. You will see that there is like a small JSON kind of document that's keeping all this information. So that was an important lesson for me, and I kind of learned that in Azure IoT Hub, you have really the basic information for a device, and that's the device ID, the device credential, and that's it. Any information that you want to store there, like metadata about the device, also any commands that the device will provide or the device is unable to work with, you need to create them yourself by hand and kind of take care to storage this information. So I said, okay, so I'm a Java developer. Is there an SDK to access the document DB? It turns out that there is. I found it on GitHub. So I created a very simple application just to push this information in the document DB. Again, it was just really including one dependency in my POM. And that's, sorry. And that's pretty much the code that's used to kind of connect to DocumentDB and create the JSON document that I need there. So let's kind of start this. Okay. Okay, it runs successfully. So let's go back to the DocumentDB, do a refresh on the documents that are there, and just quickly check. Okay, we have a device that's using the ID of the device that I have previously provisioned. So what does this bring me? Let's just refresh again the list of the devices here. And you will see that my device appeared. It's available here with some basic information, no metadata whatsoever. And is there any commands? No commands so far. So I was thinking, okay, I provisioned the device, I created the record in the DocumentDB, but I'm lacking any information about what is the telemetry that I will be sending and what are the commands that I use. So I went back to the original code of the Node.js application and I took a look at what was it sending. So I'll just give another zoom in here. And you will see that the first message that it sent was a special kind of a JSON that was device ID and some metadata about the device itself. And after that, it started like pumping data. So I was thinking, okay, who is taking care of this? Who is looking at this specific kind of a packet itself? It turns out it's the stream analytics, and that's the usage of stream analytics there. So let me go back to the solution and just show you how it works. And that's the stream analytics that's connected there. And it really has this kind of a query that's looking at the stream of data that's coming. And if the data has a device info event, it's taking care to put this information in the DocumentDB. So, okay, right, I'm getting messages, I guess. So I kind of constructed my first, right, let me close this, come on. I kind of constructed an application, the first application that's using the SDK, the device SDK, to start sending data, and I constructed a kind of a package that's sending exactly this information. So that's the one that's called provision my device. So again, looking at the POM, let me see if that's the one. All right. It's the registered device. So looking at the POM itself, again, I just added the device library. And in order to kind of run it, let me kind of zoom it for you. I need to have like one thing, and it's the connection string to the device. The easiest way to get the connection string is like really to go to one of these helper applications, copy the connection string, and kind of push it there. Okay, so now I have the connection string. I'm constructing the object. I'm using the good old JSON here from a bunch of really POJOs, and I'm putting some sample data. So let's kind of run it. All right, so I successfully sent my first package to Azure IoT Hub. So let's see what happened. And if we go back and kind of refresh again, we'll see I have the device. All right, I have, let me see, no commands here. What I'm seeing is the device is disabled, so I need to enable it. All right. I strangely. Now, the package didn't come through because the device was disabled. Now the device is enabled, and I will run the application itself. Now, that's the other part. First part is that you need to have the connection string, and the second part is that the device has two states. It's either enabled or it's disabled. And by creating the device, I automatically disable it, so it's not receiving any packets. And that's a really useful feature if you have a lot of devices and you just want to stop some of them receiving data. So you can kind of disable them. Now I have enabled it, and as you can see, the status of the response changed and the actual package was received. So if I go back and refresh, you will see that the information about the metadata has changed, and I have the commands that are available. Okay, I think I disabled the device again. So let me go back and enable the device. Yeah, I have commands. And these are commands that I decided myself that this device will have, and the device will respond to them. So now we have the device is provisioned, the device is enabled, and what is left to do is start sending data, right? So again, to start sending data, you will use the device client SDK and start pushing this data. If you want to see what are the messages that are coming to the Azure IoT Hub, you can use the Device Explorer or any of the other tools that are available to monitor the IoT Hub, and you can say, for example, for the Java simulated device, I want to monitor all the events that are coming there. So let me kind of switch back to my application, and I have a simple, very simple application that's kind of sending and receiving information. Now, it's really a very simple loop that's using the device SDK to start sending data. And I created it in a way that it's kind of taking parameters from the command line. My line of thinking was, if this is working on my desktop, I can, after that, publish this as a web job. And this will run in the cloud, and this would be like a real simulated device, just like the devices that are used in the solution. If you're not familiar with the web jobs in Azure, you can kind of consider them something like cron jobs. And it's really like a very similar notion, since it's supporting a similar kind of a language to define when and how to execute these applications. And web jobs does take jar files as an input, so you can easily do that. So in order to kind of, let me quickly run my application. So it would kind of ask me for several things. Sorry. Okay, it's going to ask me for several input parameters. So just let me configure this. I need to put the connection string, the number of the messages that I want to send, and the protocol that I would like to use. And specifically for this, I would use MQTT. And what's the reason behind it? Like MQTT is like two-way protocol, so it's always available. For example, if I was using HTTP as a protocol, it would go over port 80, so no problems with any firewalls whatsoever. But I won't have this like persistent connection to the Azure IoT Hub. What I will have is like constant pooling for the IoT Hub in order to check for any messages that are coming back for my devices. So now I have all the inputs, and let's kind of run the application. So it's starting to pump messages. And if I go in my helper tool, I will see that I'm starting to receive messages on this specific device, which is very nice. If I go back to the solution itself and kind of check the dashboard, all right. Enable the device. I should slowly start receiving all this information, which is great. And that's why one way of communicating. So now we are sending data, but we want to start receiving data back. Now, previously I've defined like several functions for this specific device. And one of them is like set temperature. And this is kind of in order to bump up the temperature sensor, let's put it like this. So let's put like something 112, for example, here, and I'm sending the command. And that's using the Azure IoT Hub to send information back to the device. If I go back to the device, you will see that I have received this message. I took an action on it and increased the temperature of the sensor that's being sent. So does it has any impact? So let's go back to the dashboard, and you will see that there's a little rise here at the temperature, so we are receiving this information. Obviously, you want to do something else. For example, if you have your device running as a web job, you don't want just to stop the web job, or you just want to stop the telemetry of sending this information, I can go back to the device and say, okay, I want to run a command, and this command is like stop telemetry. Send the command. And let's go back to my application. And you will see that it ended the application, so it's no more information is being sent. So that's basically what you need to do in order to connect the device, provision it, and kind of run it with Azure IoT Hub. Now, these are the, let's say, two basic APIs that you will need to use, the device SDK and the service SDK. But let me kind of go back and kind of show you what other SDKs are available out there. So for the other scenarios where you can't connect directly the device, you will need to use, just let me start my pen. So if you have the device and the device is IP enabled, like a Raspberry Pi is, you can directly connect it to the IoT Hub. But what happens if you have a gateway and you kind of need to have some sort of a middle layer to start using it? Well, Microsoft kind of provides you with a Gateway API, which is a framework developed by Microsoft that's kind of running on gateways. It enables you to connect devices that are not IP enabled with pretty much different protocols, kind of work on the data and send the information to IoT Hub. For this gateway, there's a Java binding for the API, so you can start using it. And below, you can kind of see links to GitHub with all the details that you will need in order to go and find the SDKs. I will kind of encourage you, if you are looking for an SDK or a way to connect a device, I wouldn't say the single source of truth, but the best thing that you can do is just go on GitHub and look for the specific SDK that you will need, and you will find pretty much all the resources and documentation that you need to go there. Now, I just mentioned, just noticed that we have like 2 minutes, so I will stop here with the demonstrations, and I'm just open for any questions that you might have. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Quick question about the device shadow. It was like a definition defined by the Amazon. It's some kind of functionality that provides for us as the engineers to get the last state if device will lost connection of the internet, for example.
Yeah.
period of time. Is there something similar in the Azure?
Yeah, I haven't presented it. It's been a recent addition to the Azure IoT Hub. It's available. It's I think the name that's used is Device Twin. So you can have a twin of your devices, and it's really kind of mirroring the information from your device. It's also introduced some new notions that are related to building hierarchy of devices that you can kind of manage. And it's an easy way to manage all these devices, enable them, disable them, make a cluster. So there's a similar functionality. I'm not sure whether it's a GA right now or it's in a preview, but it's definitely something that's available. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Which traffic generated by client device when it's intermediate with the cloud? Which channel should be to have a stable connection and traffic?
You mean like what's the most, which protocol is the one that's used, or like?
No, I just try to understand, is it will be enough, I don't know, 128 kilobits, or I should have a megabit channel or something?
I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but when you are provisioning an IoT hub, there are different level services. And the higher the level services go, it kind of allows you to get more messages. So depending on your need, you will need to find the correct, or let's say the right service level for your needs. For example, if you want to start with Azure IoT Hub and Azure IoT Suite, there is a free tier or free layer for Azure IoT, but it kind of allows you to get no more like 1,000 messages per day, and the bit rate is not that high. So it really depends on what's your needs and what your solution is. And of course, it's related to the price. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
You said that there are few SDKs available.
Yeah.
What about Java-based languages and other languages? Is there any API to add like support of Scala or something like that?
Yeah, at this point, the supported languages are specifically for devices. It's JavaScript, C, Java, C#, and Python. Now, Python is built on its actually bindings to the C API, and the Java API comes in two flavors. One is native Java, and the other is again binding on top of C. So for Scala, I don't think that I haven't seen one. But if you want to create one, you can do it. The SDKs, just let me kind of quickly go here, are published and they're open source. So if you want to kind of check the code, you can kind of check out and do a binding yourself. So you can use it by yourself. All right, so 5 minutes. Any other questions? No, I was pretty explicit on explaining everything. All right, okay, so that's it.